Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. Rob and Carter back with you as always. Carter, how you doing tonight?
I am great, man. How are you?
I'm good. You have to be thrilled. You show up. We know we're recording, but my wife puts in front of us a little blind. We've got 3 whiskeys poured that we have no idea what it is.
I mean, I think it's probably like a total blind. Like, we don't even know, like, with the proofs or anything,
She didn't give us anything, and I didn't give her any guideline to say, look for this or stay within this or anything. So this is just...
I mean, is it necessarily bourbon, or is it, like, anything? Like any whiskey?
Well, I mean, I don't have a whole lot other than bourbon, but I'm just thinking my wife, the way she picks things, she might have just looked for the coolest bottles.
I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the whole marketing works.
Yeah, marketing does work. So we got a little blind going, but the topic of tonight's podcast is we want to talk about food. And I think, cooking at home has become very, very popular. A lot of people love to cook at home. I think it's been going on for quite a while. But I think there's still a lot of people who want to get into cooking that haven't, dove in deep, so to speak. I think they do a lot of backyard cooking, burgers and chicken and things like that. But there's probably some dishes that they might want to cook inside. Maybe say they want to host a dinner night, have a couple of couples over, and be able to kind of call it impress your friends. Right? You want to have that dinner that you can impress your friends. Cook something that they go, this is amazing.
I love this. I love this topic because I kind of love and I kind of hate it because I feel like I'm going to give away like recipes that I always go to, and people aren't going to be so impressed because they're like, oh, that's one of your go-tos,
Well, and I made a list of 5 dishes that I think are, impress your guest type dishes. That if you make this, your guests are going to be kind of wowed, that wow factor. But also that I think there's this perception on the dishes that I have on my list, at least 4 out of the 5, that they're either difficult or they're very technical in the way you have to make it, and it's hard, so people don't want to try. I mean, they see it or they'll eat it at a restaurant, but they're fearful of trying to tackle that at home.
Yeah.
And I think that the 5 dishes I've come up with aren't in that category. They're really not as difficult as you might think they are.
Yeah, the 5 that I kind of came up with, I feel like they look impressive, but they're not difficult to execute, really. If you have the right equipment, sometimes that plays into account. One of my dishes uses a nice Dutch oven type thing, one
sure.
of the Le Creuset type. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. The iron that has
the expensive one,
the expensive stuff. But I mean, you have to have a decently equipped kitchen. But this is all stuff you're going to use all the time, so it's not a bad investment.
Yeah, and I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't want to scare people off that maybe want to get into home cooking.
Oh, no,
you don't have to have you have a big pot, you have something you can cook in. Most of the dishes that, at least off my list, you can make tonight. There's one on my list that you can get it requires a particular type of cooking piece of equipment.
Yeah.
But it's not expensive. Less than $20, you can go get one. So,
okay. Yeah.
I just want people these are dishes that just at home, you can make this at home right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think this is important because people get intimidated. I've noticed it. I have friends that actually say, they're like, well, I can't cook, and I'm like, what do you mean you can't cook? Like you can follow like exactly to the T a recipe, and as complicated as it might seem, just as a 3,000-foot view or whatever, it's really not that difficult.
It's not that difficult. And I think where people end up having a failure when they're trying to cook a nice dinner night isn't actually the execution of the recipes that they're making. I think it's the planning and more importantly, the timing of everything.
Yeah.
Because typically when you cook in your kitchen, you're not in a restaurant-type kitchen. you don't have, you've got to share an oven if you're making multiple dishes that need that oven. You need to share stovetop for multiple pans depending on what you're making, and sauces and potatoes and cooking whatever meats on the stove. So coordinating and planning out and getting that timing right, I think is, if people were to be honest, they'd probably say, I made it all, but it didn't come out the way I wanted because it didn't time it properly.
Yeah. And to me, like when I'm hosting a dinner or something like that, I've got a couple days in advance. I'm thinking about what do I need? What do I need to put together? The grocery list. What can I prep ahead of time? Things
Bingo.
like that.
That's the biggest thing.
Oh,
what
yeah.
can you prep ahead of time?
Oh yeah, like and there's lots of stuff that you can make the night before. Have it like sitting in, a casserole dish, or like sitting on a tray or something like that.
In your Tupperware, whatever.
Pop it in the oven. And let it go.
Yeah.
That's one less thing that you have to worry about.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So about this whiskey,
favorite nose?
2 by like a million miles. I'd probably go I'd rank the noses on these, and just so everybody knows, we have 3 whiskeys in front of us. Well, we believe they're whiskeys. I mean, they're brown in color.
Yeah. I'm positive they're whiskeys. I don't think I have anything other than a whiskey, and it would be a tequila or a rum or a gin, and
maybe an añejo or something. I could.
Nah,
it's not. Well, I can tell from the nose, it's not one of those.
Yeah, we would know.
Dude,
these are bourbons.
I like this on one. I'm not particularly crazy about the nose, but I feel like it's a Four Roses product.
Well, I kind of thought all 3 might be Four Roses.
You think so?
A little bit.
Ooh, maybe you're right. I don't know. 2 is not Four Roses.
No, I think 2 could be Heaven Hill.
Oh, I'm thinking, hold on. Let's see. Ooh, it could be actually. But I was actually thinking 3 might be Heaven Hill also.
Well, I know, and I went to that and went, that might be Heaven Hill.
It's kind of got that like funk. You don't have a lot of Makers products in the house, right? You're pretty thin on that.
Well, I have the regular Makers, the cast strength, and 2 private select picks, but I doubt if she dug those out.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if maybe a Maker's cast strength might be number 3, something like that. Because it does have a little bit of that funky kind of quality to it, like that Heaven Hill kind of puts off, for my nose at least. God, 2's has got a great nose.
Yeah, 2's the best nose.
I mean, it's just like candy.
And I would say 3's my next favorite nose, and then 1 would be my least favorite nose.
Yeah, I agree. 1's kind of got more of the almost like a rye spice, like a baking spice, bit. That kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a rye.
Do you have a favorite dish when you host a dinner and people are coming to your house that haven't been to your house before? You got 2 couples coming over, you and Yana are hosting. Do you have a favorite dish that you go, when we have new people come over, this is the dish I enjoy making?
Yeah, it's on my list.
It is on your list.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I guess we can start revealing.
Yeah, well, let's. You want to start with that one, or do you have a particular order?
I have no. I just kind of listed them out.
That's kind of how I was.
Okay, so it's it's an Italian dish.
Okay.
Called straccato. Which I don't know what that translates into, but I have an Italian friend that says that it's kind of like pot roast, but Italian style pot roast.
Really? Is it with pasta?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. So you essentially take like like a roast, and you sear it. You cook it with thyme and with red wine and a little beef broth and things like that, and you essentially just let it cook and simmer.
So what you're saying is you're going to sear it off in a big pan first,
Yes.
get a nice crust all over all sides.
Yep, remove it, and then the next thing that you do is you add the vegetables in the pan with all the searing,
fond.
and the fond and everything like that. Then you deglaze the pan with wine.
Okay.
Add your broth, add all of your I think it's thyme and sage and some other herbs and things like that. You put the meat back into the pot,
Kind of braising it.
yeah, and braise it for like 3 hours, three and a half hours, something like that.
Okay.
Then what you do when the meat's done, everything's good to go. You're gonna have like a lot of liquid left over. Well, what you'll do is with that liquid, you remove the meat and reduce the liquid to a pretty to a simmer. Get that down to a simmer, and eventually you add your pasta with a little pasta water to thicken it up, and the sauce that came from the braise ends up being the sauce for the pasta. And then you take the braised meat and put over the top of the pasta, kind of in a big presentation type.
So
thing.
you're gonna kind of toss all your pasta in that sauce,
Right.
Put it in a plate.
Yep.
Top it with a little bit of the meat,
Yeah.
and then throw a little parsley on top
and
or
within
something.
that, while you're making the pasta and it's in that sauce, you're adding you add some Parmesan cheese, of course.
Now, I know your wife, but the first thing that I'm thinking of that would go really good with that, because I'm a big fan of it, is mushrooms. But I know your wife.
You're right. I would love to add mushrooms to it.
You can't.
But I don't, because my wife absolutely hates mushrooms.
Okay, well, I'm a little disappointed because I've known you long enough and we've not had that dish from you.
Yeah, so you're going to have it at the house. It's fan-freaking-tastic.
Okay, it sounds really good. I mean,
and it's a great wintertime or fall-time dish.
Is there a particular cut of, is it like a chuck roast? Or what?
It's a chuck roast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I generally use. But, honestly, you can use...
I mean, when you're slow cooking it, if you use a little tougher cut, just cook it a little longer.
Cook it a little longer. I mean, it's going to turn out great. And apparently this is like a big family style type meal that people eat in Italy. It's not uncommon. Now I don't know what region and all this kind of thing, but I have to full discretion. I stole this recipe from Jamie Oliver.
Oh, did you? Okay, I was going to ask you. Where you got the recipe, and two, where you would suggest people to go get it. So Jamie Oliver is the one you like. But
Jamie Oliver recipe, I mean, you can do whatever twist that you want to put on it or whatever. But
so I think it's fair to say all the recipes or all the dishes we're going to mention tonight, you can find a recipe for these. Pinterest or YouTube is probably your two best places. Pinterest is going to give you the recipe. YouTube is a great place to find people actually, walk you through step by step on the actual process of making these things.
Yeah, and on this particular recipe, I'd say like you can actually YouTube this straccato, Jamie Oliver. You'll get the video. It'll pop up.
It pops up.
He'll walk you all the way through it, and it's
and he's British.
Yeah,
making an Italian dish.
Well, it's interesting. So, like, kind of I'm going a little off topic here, but so I don't know if you ever watched the I think his name is Vincenzo's Plate or something like that.
He's in Australia, but he's Italian.
Yeah, and so he reviews a lot of these people like cooking Italian dishes and things like that. Well. Anyway, I've watched him review Jamie Oliver on several Italian dishes, and he thinks he does a great job. Okay, so maybe he's doing it right.
Yeah.
So
I saw. I don't know. You talk about Vincenzo's Plate, and I know we're kind of off topic. We'll get right back here real quick.
Yeah.
But do you ever watch Uncle Roger?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I saw him beat up Jamie Oliver for making fried rice one time.
Yeah.
So I laughed at that.
Oh yeah, and I think Vincenzo's like reviewed Uncle Roger a few times too.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and he got challenged by Uncle Roger to make fried rice.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
He made it one time. It was a fun episode to watch.
So So anyway, but that's a dish that I like to cook. It's more of a, like I say, weather I think has something to do with that dish. Like fall time, that kind of stuff.
And we're in the South, so it doesn't get super cold. We're in the Houston area, but I do look forward to the fall time. Just dropping into the 60s where I can make a soup or a stew or some kind of bisque or a gumbo.
Yeah, that's kind of
my time of year.
That's like weather plays a factor, man. I mean,
hugely.
I as much as I love soups and things like that, it's hard for me to eat a soup in the summertime.
It's just too hot.
It's just too hot down here.
Yeah. Well, there's a topic. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of soups.
Wow, that's
number 3 is hot.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to it yet.
Woo! No, that's my first one. I'm going backwards on the tasting. Well, anyway, I want to say this about recipes. This is just kind of my rule, and it's just a suggestion. You guys do whatever you want. Whenever I find a recipe, even if I look at the recipe and go, I'm not sure I'd do it exactly like that, I always make the recipe exactly how the recipe says, and then the next time I figure out what I would want to tweak in it as far as flavor profile, whatever. My technique might be a little bit different. Change it up a little bit, but first time, make the recipe the way the recipe, is calling for you to do it, and then change it up after you've evaluated, eaten, can taste, get all the flavors, and then go, here's what I would change.
Number 3 is really stinking good.
Yeah, it is good, but it's hot.
I have a feeling it might be a Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Might be the old Pirates label over there.
Yep, wouldn't be surprised at that because that's got a nice.
I thought it was Elijah Craig.
But anyway, and another thing I just note on that staccato, I like to get noodles. If you're gonna get the noodles,
get on a wider one.
I like to get the spiral noodles because they kind of hold the sauce a little bit better.
So is it a noodle or a pasta that you're using?
It's a pasta. Okay. So like the spiral pasta. Okay. Sorry, I just. Not thinking about what I'm saying, but yeah, it's a pasta for sure.
I know what you're talking about. Those
so like a penne would be a good option too.
Something open, rigatoni.
Yeah, but I think you can kind of do anything.
Sure,
whatever you want. So anyway, I'm sure the Italians have a very specific pasta that they use, and if you don't do that, you probably hurt somebody's grandmother's feelings.
And I think a lot of people have a misconception about Italian pasta, that they think that all Italian pasta is fresh pasta. It's not. There's certain dishes that are made with a dry pasta, and then there's certain dishes that should be made with a fresh, egg pasta.
Yeah.
But when I first got into cooking and learning more about Italian food, I always thought, Italians make all their pasta, and they don't. There are certain dishes that they do use a dry pasta.
Oh yeah,
and should. So
not all pasta brands in the grocery store are created equal.
They're not. Like anything, you get what you pay for. So paying a little bit more for a nicer cut of beef if you're making a steak. Mm-hmm. Same with pasta. You cut it and pay a little bit more just to get a better quality pasta. I think you'll notice the difference.
Yeah. So I kicked us off here. What's your?
Well, one on my list that I've come to make probably the last 5 or 6 years, and I enjoy making it. So when I have people who are coming over that maybe have never had it, we've had a conversation, they've never had it, but they want to try it, is a beef Wellington.
Wow. Okay, so that's a little bit more complicated.
Well, see, it sounds that way, but it's really not. Here's how I would say it. It's not complicated. It just has more steps involved in making it. It's just, not that hard. So, and again, the recipe I stole for the version that I make is Gordon Ramsay's.
Oh, yeah, that's the one we do too.
Yeah.
My wife and I have made that. It's actually become kind of a Christmas tradition. That's what we make a lot of times for Christmas is beef Wellington.
And I know that's popular in England. I think that's a big Christmas dish over there is beef Wellington.
Yeah, and here's a fun fact. I didn't know this until actually this past weekend. So apparently in England, the big dinner is on the 24th. It's Christmas Eve dinner.
We do the same thing.
Okay.
You do Christmas today?
Christmas Day.
Okay.
You know, that's what we do. But I also have like a whole, like, we could get into this in a different episode, but I have a whole thing that I do for Christmas.
Well, and ours simply is because of kids.
Yeah.
When you have kids, you get together with a family Christmas Eve. Christmas morning, when they open gifts and want to play all day with what they've got, last thing they want to do is pack it up or go into a relative's house for the day.
Yeah.
They want to enjoy. So kids are what kind of drove that. Now our kids are older, so we could do Christmas dinner. But
Hey, you could do Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
We're not opposed to that. But yeah, beef Wellington. I think a lot of people hear that and go, "I can't make a beef Wellington," and it's really not that hard. It's taking the mushrooms, chopping them up in a food processor, just pulsing them until they're really fine. And then all you do is you cook the water out of them in a skillet on a medium-low heat, and you're just really almost making like a pate with that.
Yeah. Just removing all the excess moisture.
All that moisture.
And that will not only I think you enhance the flavor of the mushrooms when you cook out all the water, but you also, aren't making your puff pastry soft.
You don't want it to be soggy.
Yeah.
So once you do that, what I typically do is take some Glad cling wrap, put it on the counter, wide enough, long enough that it would hold what I'm going to put on there, and you lay out your prosciutto because you're going to put a layer of prosciutto down.
Yep.
And then you're going to put your mushrooms spread out evenly, covering the entire surface of that. Leave that alone. That's all you got to do. Let it sit there. Take your filet. So typically what I do is, not typically, what I always do is go to Costco. Costco or Sam's is fine. If you want to use your grocery store, use your grocery store. But Costco has great prices on either a choice or a prime filet. So buy your whole tenderloin. Cut the eye out, which means, there's a piece that you can lift up on one end and you'll see where it changes on the other end. The middle there, cut that out. And that's the
Chateaubriand.
There you go, if you're fancy.
Yeah. Or you can, I've done this before when we've made it. There's some steak shipping companies that you can, sometimes they run deals and things like that. I mean, you can get a frozen piece of meat and have it for a few months, like if they're running a deal in Chateaubriand because it's summertime and you're preparing for December, why not?
I mean, if I can get a deal on it, I would absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I typically go there because once I cut the eye out, I still have a lot of good quality meat left that I throw in the freezer and use for other dishes.
Oh yeah.
But once you get that and you get your eye cut, you're just going to put a little bit of oil in a big skillet large enough to hold that piece of meat, and over a medium to medium-high heat, you're going to sear that off on all sides, just like we talked about with your dish. And once that's done, you're going to set it aside, let it cool, and once it's rested for about 15 minutes, you're going to take Coleman's English mustard.
Yep.
And you're going to coat it in that English mustard. Now, I do salt and pepper when I'm cooking the tenderloin. But then lather on, plenty of and I say Coleman's. You can use a Dijon or whatever you want to use.
Whatever,
But Coleman's English mustard, to me, has a flavor that just complements the mushrooms and the prosciutto very, very well, and it's just become my favorite. And you, lather it up all over, and you put it right in the middle of your mushrooms prosciutto. And then what I do is I roll that up and then twist it nice and tight.
Yeah.
You can't see me, but I'm, on the ends where you would just make it really tight and then fold it in so it stays in that shape, put it in the fridge, 30 minutes to an hour. Let it really kind of cool off and tighten up just like that. And then it's just getting your puff pastry out. And same thing, just lightly rolling it out, making it so that it will fit that size, whatever size eye you have, and just gently rolling that puff pastry over it, folding it up, using a little bit of butter to help it kind of seal.
Yep.
And then you can take a knife or a fork or whatever and make whatever design you want on top.
Yeah.
Throw it in the oven.
Egg wash sometimes,
I use egg wash. Yep.
It brings out a little brown and
absolutely.
And the puff pastry,
And throw it in the oven. I think it's like 30 minutes or whatever it is. Look at the recipe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like 350 for 30 minutes. But look at your puff pastry. You don't want it to overcook.
Yeah, and
and
you could always use. I mean, it's not ideal, but you could always use a meat thermometer if you want to. I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, and what I would say is, that's the important part. Get it to a certain temp that you want prior when you're searing it.
Yeah.
That way, when you cook it, you don't have to break the pastry.
Right. Well, and I think that's why, like I say, like with a meat thermometer, you can insert the meat thermometer in a very underneath in a non-visible area, and just to, if you're worried about overcooking,
Now I'm a medium rare guy, so 130.
Same
132. That's where I want.
I'd even shade a little less.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic.
So it's really not that hard. I mean, the way I describe it, and I know that's not your recipe. I'm just kind of walking you through the steps that you would do. But it's that easy. But when you hear beef Wellington or see somebody say they're going to make a beef Wellington, you think, man, this is going to be, it's too hard. I can't make that. Or you see a picture of a beef Wellington, you're like, I can't do that.
When I think this also plays into like what we were talking about, like the prep time. You can prep this meal
the night before.
And it's as simple as just inserting it into the oven.
Yeah, I've not ever. I usually make this on a Saturday where I have all day, so I've never made it the night before. I think if I were to do that, I would do the mushrooms over the prosciutto. Go ahead and do my tenderloin mustard, roll it up tight, put it in the fridge, and I would leave it in the fridge.
Yes,
and I wouldn't put the puff pastry around.
Oh no, yeah, that I probably should. Yeah, so we've made it and done it just like that.
And when you bring it out and you're going to cook it, if you're going to use that technique, let it get to room temperature. So you're talking, big, thick cut of meat like that, probably a couple hours sitting out so it gets to room temperature so it cooks evenly. Because that puff's going to cook too quick if you don't.
Right. I'm just saying, like, you can actually store that piece of meat,
which is a great idea.
And actually it holds its form a little bit better when it's in the
Agreed.
fridge.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to do it. Make it ahead of time. Just again, go look at a recipe. We're just kind of telling you quick steps on how to do
And another
things.
thing that I didn't include in my list, but it kind of falls under the same in the same vein, is I like cooking a prime rib as well. Super easy.
Oh,
I mean, like it's
prime rib is like one of the easiest things to cook. The hardest part there is how you season it.
Yeah, seasoning and making sure that your temperature is good on the
internally.
Internally,
that's just a meat thermometer,
and that's it.
Yeah, it's just time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
what are you thinking about the whiskeys? I'm thinking one's lower proof than the other two.
I haven't tried one yet.
Okay. I'll tell you, number 3 I like a lot. And number 2, I almost feel like has a toasted quality to it. And I'm not really sure. I might be off, but I feel like it has a toasted quality to it. Maybe.
I don't think 2 or 3 are lower proof. I think they're both 110 or more on those two.
You might be right.
I'm going to let my palate clear a little bit before I try.
Dude, I'm telling you, 3, though, that is the best one here. Like, it's super good. But,
what's another dish on your list?
Okay, so, let me go to my fancy-dancy list. I guess I'm just going to go, like, kind of follow your footsteps here.
Okay.
I like Gordon Ramsay's short rib recipe.
It's a beef short ribs.
Yeah, beef short ribs.
Okay. Is red wine, I'm thinking's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big bulb of garlic.
Okay.
Just essentially a similar process to, like what I was talking about with the staccato. I mean, it's a braising technique, right? And you sear the short ribs. You essentially put them into like a wine broth sauce.
Yep.
You add a big couple of heads of garlic just cut in half in there.
Just let them simmer in there. They'll let that flavor just release.
Cover it up with foil and let it cook for like 3.5 hours.
Do you have to every once in a while add some more beef broth or anything, or is it
generally not?
Okay.
Super easy, but impress your friends. I mean, like you go, wow, the super tender short rib that's so flavorful and all this kind of stuff. It's real easy. I mean,
and short ribs are one of those that, well, gosh, I would say they used to not be too expensive.
They've gotten expensive.
Here in the last month, they have gotten pretty spendy. But compare, if you know those are going up and related to other quality cuts of meat, they're still less expensive.
Yeah.
So I'll say it that way.
Yeah. The thing about short ribs is like what I would do is make sure you've got little thickness to them. Because you trust me, she knows she's got a little thickness. But like, what I'd say is like, there's some that are real, like there's not a lot of meat on the bone.
Well, see, and that's a great tip. You bring up a great point because we just did. You guys came over Friday.
Yep.
And we did short ribs. I cooked some short ribs for us, and when I go get my short ribs, I go to the butcher.
Yes.
At the grocery store. Ours here locally is H-E-B. And I say, buddy, I want 12 ribs with this much meat on it. And I hold my fingers at 2.5, 3 inches apart. I want this much meat. Because to your point, you're exactly right. You'll buy a packet of 4. 2 of them will have 1/8 of an inch of meat. It's all bone. You're paying for bone.
Right.
And the other 2 have meat. And I'm like, no. I'm not a sucker. I'm not doing that.
No. Exactly. I mean, you spend all this time cooking it. You want to have as much as possible on there. Yeah. And I'm not opposed to trimming short ribs a little bit too. Like, I mean, if they
typically I have to get fat off and the silver skin. And that's one thing people need to know about when you're talking about certain cuts of meat. There's fat, and you don't want to get rid of all the fat because fat is
flavor. Sure, yeah.
But there's also another piece of skin and they call it silver skin, and it looks like grayish colored skin, very thin. That's something that you do want to take a knife and get just right underneath that and cut that off because it becomes very chewy and unpleasant, and you don't want that in somebody's bite when they're eating dinner.
Absolutely.
So just a little tip, if you don't know about silver skin, you start doing some cuts of meat, this is something you definitely want to look for. Brisket, things like that.
Brisket for sure. Even some like steaks and things like
flank
that.
steaks,
Take off the sinew or like the silver skin or whatever they call it. Like that's inedible.
Absolutely. I do want to mention one technique that you can use. You're talking about braising for a certain amount of hours and things like that. You know what I'm going to talk about?
Mm-hmm. It's on my list, by the way.
What is it?
Something else.
It's not a recipe. It's a technique.
It's a technique I use for making another dish on my list.
Okay, well then I'll wait and let you bring it up.
Okay.
The next dish on my list, I've become a really big fan of making the Rome pastas from Italy. And trying to make them as authentic as possible.
Okay.
And they're really, really good. And they're simple ingredients, 3, 4, 5 ingredients, just depending on which of the 4 pastas you're making. But the one that has become my favorite, my family's favorite, is the pasta carbonara.
Yeah.
Which is using eggs.
Lots of cream, right?
No cream in Italian cooking. It will taste creamy.
Yes.
And look creamy.
I had this dish last night.
Did you make it last night?
No, I went to Fiori.
Oh, look at you.
Yes.
So it's eggs. It's going to be pecorino romano. And if you don't like that because it's a goat cheese and you want to go to a Parmigiano Reggiano, that's fine. You can substitute or just do a Parmesan. But if you want it in that authentic kind of flavor profile, using a pecorino romano is what you want to use. And, if you don't eat a lot of pecorino romano, you might be initially kind of like, I'm not sure about this cheese. I would say give it a chance because if you like cheeses, this will be one that in these types of dishes will grow on you and you'll be like, okay, you try it with this dish, try it with the other cheese if you want. You're going to come back and go, the pecorino romano is the better cheese.
I'm such a goat cheese fan. Like nothing that does not turn me off at all.
Yeah, and it shouldn't. But so you have the eggs, you have the pecorino romano, you have the pasta, and you have guanciale if you can get it.
Yeah.
we are very lucky here in the Houston area that we have some great butchers and shops and grocery stores that carry a lot of stuff. We can get guanciale. So I use fresh, dry-aged guanciale to make the dish. If you can't get guanciale, use pancetta. Almost anywhere you can get pancetta.
That's true.
Use pancetta. Some people will tell you can also use bacon. I say, no, you can't. Do not use bacon in this dish. Bacon has a totally, do you agree with me? Totally different flavor than pancetta or guanciale.
Yeah.
I mean, totally different. So don't use bacon in this dish.
And, I think it's a texture thing too, like with guanciale. Like, when I have guanciale, I like it to be like thick enough cut.
Oh, yeah.
To where you have a chew, know, not so thin and so
melts away.
You want to leave a nice little cut on there,
that and black pepper. And that's all the ingredients you have. So eggs, pecorino romano, pasta, guanciale or pancetta, and black pepper. That's all you need to make this dish. And if you make it for your friends, you start off with a nice Caesar salad. Maybe you have a charcuterie board at the house before your guests come over. You start off with a nice Caesar salad or some type of nice dinner salad, or if you make a soup or something. But this is your next dish, which is a very easy. I think we have a pipe that broke.
What the heck
it's
was
just
that?
Bear.
Oh, okay.
But it's a very easy dish to make. The key to this dish, though, is when you make it, it can't sit around.
No, you have to eat it immediately.
Yeah, you make it, you toss it, you get it nice and creamy, and you serve it.
And the other step, and I don't know if you mentioned it, and you might have, a little bit of pasta water.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We haven't gotten to that part yet, but you're exactly right. So in the technique or the process of making this, you're going to take, and the rule is, if you're going to serve this for 4 people, you're going to have 4 eggs, whole eggs, whites and yolks, and then 1 extra egg yolk, which is said to make it a little bit more silky and nicer. So if you're going to have 6 people, you're going to make 6 and 1 more egg yolk. So your eggs in a bowl, and then you're going to grate your pecorino romano right into your eggs and mix that all up.
Yeah.
Just kind of, and you can let that sit out and get to room temperature. Doesn't need to be real cold.
Yeah.
So let that sit out. And then all you're going to do is cook down, and I do a slow rendering of my guanciale, or if I can't get guanciale for any reason, my pancetta. I want it to cook slower so it tenderizes a little bit. I don't want it to get super crispy on the outside. And I want that fat to be released because that's just flavor that's getting in your pan.
Oh, yeah.
So
more flavor equals awesome.
Absolutely. You cook that, you let it get to a point that you like, depending on how crispy you want it or how done you want it. Take it out. And at this point, you're going to have started your pasta, letting it cook to whatever the package says. I always say go at least 2 minutes less than that because you're going to finish some cooking in the pan as you're putting the dish together. So whatever your type of pasta differs a little bit, 2 minutes less than whatever it says. Cook it for that amount of time. You don't have to drain your pasta. We don't want you to drain your pasta. So once your pasta's done, you've got your meat out of there. You've whipped your cheese and your eggs. You can put a little black pepper in your cheese and your eggs, whip it together. Then what you're going to do is, this is a key step in making carbonara the right way. Turn your heat off. You have to make sure you have your heat off. So then you're going to take tongs or whatever you use. I use tongs. Just pull your pasta out and into your big big skillet that you were cooking your meat so you can toss it and play with it a little bit. That's what she said.
Yeah.
And then you're going to, serious show here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Then you're going to add in your pasta, let it get coated really, really well. And then what you do is you add in your meat back in, is what I typically do, and get that all in there. And then you add your cheese and your egg mixture in there, knowing that you have to move that quick because the eggs, you don't want them to curd up and start cooking as eggs.
Right.
So you got to really work those pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you look at the texture of it and the creaminess of it. And to your point that you said earlier, that's where you start getting a ladle or a spoon, whatever, and you start adding in a little bit of water at a time, not too much water. because you can keep adding water. You put too much at once, one big ladle spoon, and you thin it out too much, you ruin the dish. So you want to make sure that you get it to a thickness, a creaminess that you like. And, you can serve this to people and go, there's no cream in here, and they'll swear up and down there is. There's no cream in this dish. But when made like this, made properly, with that right creaminess,
very creamy.
And then you just top it off with a little bit more pecorino romano, a little more black pepper, good to go. And you notice on this dish, we never said what?
Cream.
Salt.
Oh, salt. Yeah, you don't need it.
You don't need it. The cheese is so salty in that pecorino romano, and you put it in with the egg, and you're going to put it a little bit more on the end.
That's
the
also
guanciale or pancetta. Yeah. You don't need any salt in this dish, so you don't even need to worry about it. But it's a fun dish to cook. It's very flavorful, and when it's an authentic type of, if you're sitting around in your kitchen and people are watching you, a lot of times that's what we do, right? We're cooking as we're having a drink and talking to our guests and putting the dish together, and they're watching, and then they see you making this kind of authentic type of dish. It's just another element of a cool dinner night.
Yeah.
You put this dish together, so.
Absolutely. So probably one of my favorite Italian dishes.
Yeah.
Like, I love pasta carbonara. Like, that is I don't know. I just love it. I think it's just fantastic.
I do want to go back to your last dish, the short ribs.
Uh-huh.
I meant to ask. I was thinking it and didn't ask it. What do you serve that on? Because I'm thinking like a risotto or over some potatoes, mashed potatoes.
A lot of times. My wife's Russian, so we lean potato hard in the
Russians
household.
and Irish. Yeah.
But I'll do that, and then maybe like a vegetable, an asparagus, Brussels sprouts, something like that.
Okay.
Nothing too like, and kind of like we were talking about, like you can prep a lot of this stuff ahead of time. Man, I take my Brussels sprouts, I'll cut them up, like I'll cut them like shaved almost, like where, and I don't like to buy them already shaved because
I don't either.
They don't do a good job, and they don't do it like I do, like where I'm taking off the appropriate amount of stem and all that kind of stuff. You shave them, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll either put like a pancetta or like some kind of bacon or something like that in them. And
you have to,
and just
you have to. But
I'll take that all that shaved Brussels sprout, I'll pop it in a bag, and season it, salt and pepper, olive oil. Let it sit there. Cut up my bacon, mix it up with it the day before, or like the day of, and lay it out in a pan and let it go.
Yeah,
I mean, super freaking easy.
Yep.
And everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Everybody loves it. So, I mean, that's, if I'm going to do short ribs or something like that, vegetable, a potato, risotto is also a really great thing.
Yeah.
If you want to get super fancy, you could do like a seafood risotto, like with, like shrimp or seafood stock and things like that, or lobster if you want to go really high end, But,
but you're talking about not with the short ribs, just as a standalone dish. With
yeah. So
I love risotto.
I'm a big fan. Yeah. So, but you kind of alluded to like a technique.
Okay, here's your next one. All right, here we go.
And I feel that the technique is a bit of a cheat code.
I don't think it is.
I think it's an awesome cheat code that everybody should use.
Okay.
It's like playing Contra, up, down, left, right, BA, select, start.
Okay.
Everybody needs to know that so they can play Contra and just play the whole game.
There you go.
But yeah, it's a sous vide method. And my next, impress your guest thing is steaks, sous vide steaks, and my thing is crab cakes with steaks.
Oh yeah,
total ultimate surf and turf experience, right? And sous vide, like, again, we've talked about meat selection and to me the ultimate cut of meat for sous vide. I'm leaning this way because my wife really likes.
My wife's the same way. Go ahead.
Fillets.
Yes.
A thick cut fillet. it's the only way to cook a thick cut filet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that's an expensive piece of meat. That's something you could, if you overcook it, it just isn't good.
Yeah.
You know?
The only thing I would say, well, you're actually good with the sous vide. You can't screw it up. I mean, when you cook steaks, because the point I'm getting at is a lot of times, and I don't know how you do yours if you buy them at the store. I do the same thing, the same method I mentioned earlier, where I'll go to the grocery store and buy a whole tenderloin.
Yeah.
And my wife might go, well, I don't want a real big one, but I might be like, well, I want a nice big thick. You know, sous vide protects against, because if you cook those in the oven or on the skillet, or if you're going to do a reverse sear, you have to do the smallest steak to get the temp.
Yeah.
So that if you did the bigger ones, the smaller one's going to overcook. So it's a game there. Sous vide, it's not.
Yeah.
Thickness matters.
Yes, it does.
That's what she said.
But I think when you hit a certain point with the temperature, say it's you have an inch and a half, and then you have an inch on your fillet. When you hit that inch being at, say it's 130, you set it for, it can still go another 2 hours or so staying at 130, which is going to give that other half inch on the inch and a half steak to still hit 130 and be. So my point is, it's kind of it's fail proof.
It's fail proof. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and a lot of times, my wife's the same way. She doesn't want like an ultra huge steak.
Yeah, they're wrong, but okay.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Yeah.
But if that's what she wants, whatever. I do that. So anyway, I think it's just perfect for that.
I love your idea of the surf and turf. I think you're right. When you do a nice steak, having some seafood with that, to me, is that ultimate kind of, I hate to say high class, but higher end kind of meal.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, tonight was kick ass. This was a badass meal.
What'd you have? If you will.
Yeah, it's opulent. No doubt about it. And it's not like, you tell your buddies at work on Monday, I went over to a friend's house, had a great dinner. What'd you have? We had fillets. Well, fillets are badass in their own way.
Yeah.
But to be like, dude, we had fillets with these crab cakes, to your point.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's like, oh, man, I'd have been happy with fillets, but.
And crab cakes kind of have become a favorite of ours because my wife really loves crab cakes, and she spent a lot of time in Maryland, so she's used to getting high quality crab cakes and that kind of thing. And what I can say about crab cakes, you can look up tons of recipes on crab cakes. What it really boils down to with crab cakes is the amount of money that you spend on the ingredients that are in there.
Lump crab.
Because if you get lump, to me, I do a kind of a blend of jumbo lump with the lump and a little bit of special, which is, kind of a combination of claw meat and lump meat and that kind of stuff like that. And if you do something like that, simple, like mayonnaise, a little bit of mustard, some Old Bay, kind of mix it together, add a little bit of breadcrumbs, very little filling. You
want the crab to be the star.
You want the crab to be the star. And then I like to dust mine in panko.
Yeah.
And then,
just a quick shallow fry in a skillet, a little bit of oil.
I do mine in the oven.
Oh, yeah, you do yours in the oven. That's right. I
do mine in the oven, set it in there, just let it go. Yeah. Sometimes I'll put them on a rack.
Yeah, cooks underneath.
So it gets a nice kind of a crispiness on the outside. But that's it, man. That's all you need. That's all you need, and it's simple.
Yeah,
simple. Pan frying is great too. I like that technique as well.
But it's easier in the oven, especially if you have 6 people. I think that's a better technique to use. Just depending on what you're cooking in oven space, you might say, I got too many things in the oven. I got to do a quick.
But if you don't want to spend the money on crab, right? Another thing that I do, get yourself some shrimp.
Oh, yeah.
Make yourself like a quick shrimp scampi or like just a sauteed shrimp. Just take no time to cook.
And what I say here is you want to go, if you're going to go the shrimp route, go the larger shrimp.
Yeah.
And when you're doing a nice steak with seafood, and shrimp's going to be that seafood, you want to get that large jumbo type of shrimp.
That's right.
And to your point, come up with a nice recipe to cook them, whether it's a scampi style or just a nice grilled or on a skewer or however you want to do it. But go ahead, you talk about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, to me, like my technique is I'm probably not helping anybody here, but I just kind of freewheel it when it comes to this thing. Like I'll put a little olive oil, maybe a little butter, and then some garlic. And
now, do you like what I'll do is with the shrimp, I'll peel them and take the tail off.
Yep.
Put them in a little bowl, and then I'll put a little bit of olive oil there, salt, pepper, my seasoning, my garlic, toss them in that, let them sit for a little while in that kind of to get that flavor in them.
Oh, yeah. I left that step out, but I actually do that same thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Where I put all of those ingredients in a little bowl.
Yeah.
And like kind of let them sit in it. Basically just toss the bowl into the pan.
Yeah.
You know, like there's nothing, if I need to add a little bit more oil or something like that, I do it.
Absolutely.
But you know, a quick couple minutes, you're done. You're done. You know,
and just a quick note to everybody cooking at home. Two things I want to mention. One, there's no such thing as too much garlic. Can't happen. No such thing. The other thing I wanted to touch on, we were talking about the fillets. When you sous vide them, when they come out, they're going to be an ugly gray kind of color. You don't eat them like that. There is a step.
No, and glad you brought that up because I didn't even talk about it. Now, everybody has their own opinions about this kind of thing, about your sear, what you want to do.
Yeah,
I'm just a traditional cast iron type of person. You know, get your cast iron screaming hot.
Which means if you put a little bit of oil, you're not going to use an olive oil. You're going to use something
a higher smoke point oil,
That's
like a vegetable oil or a canola oil or something like that.
Grapeseed, something.
And get it screaming hot. Add that steak. If you're like me and don't like messes, invest in one of those like little covers that go over your pan,
cover.
Splatter covers, and just put that on top of it because that's going to create a lot less mess. Make sure you turn on your fan.
Your vent up top.
Your vent, because
your hood.
Because nobody likes hearing a fire alarm.
Smoke alarm,
or whatever.
But
and then you're talking about a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and I think to your point, you said it. A cast iron is the best tool to use for this. And they're not expensive. You can get a 12-inch cast iron for $25.
You'll have it forever. I mean,
forever.
And that's I don't use them as much as I probably should use them.
Yeah.
But when it comes to steaks, I just think that's kind of the best way.
I used it last night for a deep dish pizza.
Yeah. Fantastic. Oh yeah, that's a great way to make pizza. I love the cast iron for
pizza.
Deep dish.
So you can use them for a lot of different things. But yeah, cast iron, I think, a skillet or whatever you can use. But I agree with you, Matt or Carter, that a cast iron is the best thing to use for those. But the point I think you're making is the steaks are already done when they come out of the sous vide. You're not cooking them anymore.
To go.
That's why you're talking about a high heat on that pan, because you're just getting a crust on each side. You're talking 30 seconds to a minute to get a nice crust, and they're done. You're not looking to cook them anymore.
And personal favorite, I like to make, like a compound type butter, freeze it, cut it up. Like you can do this whenever. I mean, you could just have it in your freezer, honestly. Cut up a few little medallions of the compound butter, put on top after the steaks are resting, or you can ladle it on top, whatever you want to do. You know, I just think that's a nice touch. But yeah, and like I've heard of people also like using their grills, like getting their like gas grill extremely hot and taking it out there and just quick.
You can do that too if you want.
You can do that fine. I mean, that's gonna work.
The reason I like the cast iron is because what you just said. I mean, and you can do your cast iron on the grill. I know a lot of people who do that. But if I'm going to do it on the grill, I guess for smoke in the house, maybe they don't want that. I'm going to do it in the house. But I like it because then you can kind of put that butter and some herb in there if you want to put some thyme or some rosemary.
Sure.
Let it just get a little more flavor on that steak and then pull it out real quick. But, that's your call. Yeah. Once you start doing these things, you'll come up with your own kind of technique. And, again, go to YouTube, watch some videos and see it. But it's a great way to impress your friends. And I love that you tie in the seafood. Yeah. Surf and turf is a dish that steaks are nice, but when you add that seafood element to it, it just takes it up a couple
I
notches.
agree. I mean, then you feel like, wow, like I couldn't even get this in a fancy steakhouse. If I did, I'd be paying an arm and a leg.
That's exactly
right.
And
So I think it's great. And you can just do the same thing, like with like what I was talking about with the short rib. Like a potato or shoot, man. I mean, you could do risotto. You could do.
Well, potatoes are so versatile. I mean, you can come up with all. You can do steak fries.
You can do steak fries. I absolutely love steak fries, actually. Or an au gratin or something like that. Au gratins
are great. I'm even gotten the little colored, and I don't know what they're called. They're probably named for them, but the purple, yellow.
Like a roasted potato.
And then what I'll do with those is boil them.
Yeah.
Cut them in half. They're done cooking. And then I'll get a hot pan like we're talking about for the steak and then just toast them off. You just get kind of a little crust on them with some olive oil seasoning, some oregano, and boom, done.
Or you can do like a roasted potato, which is really super freaking easy.
You know what we don't do anymore? And I know I'm kind of talking about us now, sorry, but we'll get right back to it. I've not done a baked potato for people in a long time.
I love baked potatoes too, like a loaded baked potato.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about
that.
Yeah.
Like that's killer.
I don't know why, but I'm just thinking about that going, man, I've never, because you can go to our HEB, Matt, and holy cow, you can get some big potatoes.
Yeah.
And do a twice-baked baked potato.
Okay, I'm going to call my shot. Number 3 is barrel proof.
Okay. You think it's the Elijah Craig?
I think it's Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Okay.
I think number 2 is... I can't put my finger on number 2. It's a bit of a challenge.
Well, let's just start with which ones do you like the best?
2 and 3.
So 2 on the nose was your favorite. 2 on the nose was my favorite.
Yeah.
And I would agree 2 and 3 are my favorites on the palate as well. So
I feel like 2 could be like a 1920.
I'll just help you out and tell you it's not. Because I ran out of that bottle about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. So well, that was
go.
a good help.
Yeah.
Maybe something in that vein. I don't know. Maybe
It's got a lot of bite on it, a lot of spice on it.
It's got a lot of chocolate. To me, like a lot of the coffee, chocolate, cocoa powder.
Yeah, very pleasant.
I love it. I'm a fan. 3 is the superstar, though. It's like the best thing on here.
How can that be when your 3 glass is still almost full and your 1 and 2 are empty?
Because I'm saving that one for the last.
Oh, okay.
Because I've been.
You like it that much?
I've been slowly sipping
too.
3, dude. This one is good.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna really enjoy this. And in fact, it almost be a great thing to enjoy with a steak.
That's another topic, and I'm just, since you brought it up, just quickly, we won't talk too much about it, but I'm going to tell you that I'm not a believer, nor am I a fan.
I'm going to change you.
Of whiskey with food. Doesn't go. Whiskey doesn't go with food.
I'm going to change your mind.
I don't think you ever will. Just doesn't go. We had this talk the other night when the boys were over.
Are you an immovable object?
I am. Badass, dude.
But okay, so number 3 for you. What's your go-to? I guess we should probably cut through this a little faster because we're really chewing up some time.
Steaks were on mine as well, so we both kind of had that on there. I think steaks are a home run with everybody. I will tell you, if you have any guests coming over that eat steaks any other way than medium rare, they're wrong, and don't feed them at your house. If they have to have a steak, buy them a top sirloin. If you're going to cook something more than medium rare, it needs to be top sirloin, not a filet, not a nice ribeye, not Wagyu, not prime. It needs to be just a $6 top sirloin because they won't know the difference.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
okay.
Completely. Yeah.
So steaks was mine, so I'll jump to my number 4.
Okay.
Which was, this to me, again, is I think a lot of people get a little nervous on making this dish just because they think the technique is somewhat hard to cook them right, but it's really not. And this is where we were talking about risotto.
Yeah.
This is a dish I love to serve with risotto because to me it elevates it a little bit. It's sea scallops.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. That's I love, and I love that combo. It's my one. Like, with risotto, it's probably my number 1 favorite combo.
It's a great meal, and if you can, and when I say make a risotto, they make these box versions where you just pour it in a pan or a saucepan, pour water on it or whatever, put the lid on and you're done. Wait 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Don't make risotto that way. watch a video on YouTube.
That's the only way I do it.
Oh, then you do it wrong.
Just kidding.
Watch a video on YouTube. Watch read recipes on Pinterest. I'm not going to lie and tell you risotto's it's not hard to make.
Time-consuming.
It's time-consuming.
Yeah.
So, again, it's one of those that, the scallops are going to cook like that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those dishes, again, you're in the kitchen. You have people sitting around the kitchen bar or the table, and you're talking, you're having a whiskey, you're having a glass of wine, you're chit-chatting while you're just watching. Because really all it is you're stirring rice and adding a little bit of broth at a time until it's absorbed and a little bit more to get that rice cooked fully. And that's really all it is. But I like shallots.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to cook your shallots in it first, get those nice and tenderized a little bit. And then I like to add in a white wine, about a cup of white wine to kind of.
And shallots might be the one thing that you might have a little bit more of a struggle finding.
Again, we're so lucky here.
We are very lucky here because
let me correct myself. I said I add in the white wine after I cook the shallots. That's a lie. I don't. So go ahead. I'll correct myself here in a second.
Okay. One thing about shallots, we have H-E-B, which is a great grocery store chain.
Yeah.
And they have a great produce selection. When I go back home, a lot of times, either for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and spend it with my parents, and a lot of times I'll be responsible for cooking a dish or helping with a dish or whatever. I go look for something like shallots. It's non-existent. The produce aisle is very basic.
You're exactly right. At a lot of places, I mean, we need to do an episode on how lucky we are to live in Houston.
Oh, gosh.
Because,
anyway,
we're getting off track here. But yeah, so I cook the shallots, and then you put in your rice.
Yeah.
And this is a Boreo rice is what I use. And you're just going to toast the rice for about 2 minutes on a medium-low heat, and just let that rice get toasted. You're kind of letting it open up a little bit to get ready for the liquid that's going to come in and help it cook. Once it's toasted, then I add in my first cup of white wine and let the rice absorb all that white wine flavor. And then all we're doing is ladling in broth and letting it, you're going to see all that liquid go in, and you're going to wait until the liquid's gone. And then you have to pour more liquid in. And what you're going to use is 6 cups of broth. I'm not going to tell you that's the right recipe. You're going to have a ratio of rice to liquid depending on the number of people, how big a batch you're making. So look at that. But you're going to have a certain amount of broth to a certain amount of rice. You're going to continue to ladle in until all of it's gone. And you're going to do it on a very low temperature. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want that liquid to evaporate. You want it low enough where the liquid is being absorbed. Because if you cook it too high, but you're I'm stirring it, your rice isn't going to be cooked.
Yeah,
You can take 40 minutes, your rice still won't be cooked. So you got to do it on a lower temperature. That's why I say it's a little bit more labor intensive. But it's when you get done and all that liquid has been absorbed, I add in some saffron, which is I love saffron. You can put some mushrooms in there. Put a little Parmesan cheese at the end or whatever cheese you like in your risotto. And it's just when you serve that in a bowl over 5 big sea scallops seared on top, it's just a great dish.
It's a very versatile thing. I mean, you can make a mushroom risotto. You can make a seafood risotto. You can make,
just a simple Parmesan risotto.
Yeah, there's all kind of things we had a really, really fancy Christmas a couple of years back, and we did a beef Wellington, and we made a seafood risotto with
that's big time in
lobster and stuff like that. And that's decadent. But it's once a year, that kind of thing. So,
but it's another dish that cooking the sea scallops. Again, it's a hot pan. You're going to put oil in it. A little bit of oil, 2 tablespoons, whatever, just to get enough coating. But you're going to get it hot, and you're just going to cook that for probably a minute to a minute and a half. And then when you flip it, you're really only going to cook it about another 30 to 45 seconds because that first nice brown is, when you flip it that first time after a minute, minute and a half, it's going to have that golden, crispy brown crust on top that you want on a scallop.
That's your presentation
That's your presentation side. And it's cooked enough through that when you flip it, you cook it another 30, 45 seconds on that high heat, it's cooked through and done. So the technique is not that hard, but when you can cook scallops over a risotto and you serve that at a dinner night, people are like, What an awesome
Yo,
meal, man.
that's good. Yeah. And this is a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like presentation side, this kind of stuff. You'll learn this as you cook a little bit more, like how sears work and all this kind of thing.
Sure. What you like.
What you like. You're going to have a little bit of an eye, a feel. Everybody's stovetop cooks a little hotter or like whatever. You
gas versus electric.
You get to know like the equipment a little bit better and all that.
That's what she said.
Yeah. That is what she's learned the equipment. I can assure you that.
All right, what's your last one?
I think let me see. Oh shoot, we've got two more, but I'm gonna go quick.
Okay.
Here because I know we've got like.
I've got one more.
Okay. This one. Okay, so I have to admit, I like the way I cook this particular dish a little bit better when I actually have my smoker going and all this kind of thing. However, there is a great way to cook either St. Louis style or baby back ribs in the oven and make them taste like fan-freaking-tastic. And it's super easy. And I will 100% give credit to Alton Brown. I took his recipe and I use it every time.
Yeah.
And it's another braised recipe.
Okay.
So
I've not heard of braising St. Louis type or baby back ribs.
Oh, yeah. So check this out. This is super easy.
Okay.
You get your rib rub. There's a recipe on there. It's a lot of different components, but it's like chili powder and brown sugar and
there's
kosher
brown
salt.
sugar with ribs.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I know sarcasm here, but like black pepper. I actually like in his recipe, which I love this. It's dried jalapeno flake goes onto it as well.
I was going to think maybe some paprika or cayenne might be in there.
Also in there. Okay. Like I said, lots of different ingredients.
Okay.
Right?
It's like a rub, yeah.
Yeah. Rub the ribs down. Let them sit there. Let them take it in like a little bit. Okay. Then you create a braising liquid that I believe has apple cider vinegar and honey and some other things in it, right? You take these ribs, wrap them up in tinfoil, and create kind of like a
boat?
A boat.
With two ends open? Okay.
With two ends. Pour the braising liquid into the ribs and cook them slow in that braising liquid with it wrapped up for like 2.5 hours.
So they're just like steaming in there. Just
nice cooking.
And tender.
Okay. Then you take the braising liquid, put it into a pan, reduce it, and then you glaze the ribs. And what my technique, this is not on his recipe, I'll take the glaze and then put it on the ribs, and then I'll hit the broiler and let it just kind of
like crust on it,
crust on the top and on the bottom, dude. It's not smoked ribs, which I have a championship recipe for, and
wow.
I would have
Paul Huff's going to hear this.
Well, maybe not his level, but to me, I think it's a pretty good crowd pleaser, right? And I have a way of cooking it, but this is just so easy. You can just let it go, do it. I mean, it's fall off the bone. It's amazing. I mean, and the flavor is excellent. And
this is a main ingredient, the ribs, that the side dishes, you can go any direction.
Oh, I mean, like a slaw is nice with that. Or
cream corn.
Cream corn.
You can still do roasted potatoes. You can do a mac and cheese.
I like a corn casserole. Which is something, I mean, you can go in many different directions. But this main dish, to me, is just like...
And you can make it elevated. You can make it a really nice potato dish with a nice, asparagus or some roasted veggies. And make it more of an elegant type of meal as well. So, I mean, this is very versatile is my point.
And another thing I'd say about the ribs, too, just to, how we were talking about the silver skin and stuff like that, make sure that you remove that bottom silver skin that's on
the back of the bone.
On the back of the bone.
Yeah.
That's kind of critical. You don't want to eat that.
It's more than critical. I mean, it makes a huge difference in cooking those ribs. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
So remove that. Make sure you do that. But and if there's any like silver skin kind of sitting on the top of the rib, sometimes there is. Just go and just take a knife and remove it.
Yep. If you get that started and you start to pull, typically the whole thing
you can pull the whole thing out.
It just kind of pulls off.
So anyway, that's one. That's my next to last one, and then I have one last one after yours.
My last one is this is the one where I was saying you need to buy a piece of equipment, but $20 or less. I mean, you can go find a paella pan. Here we have Home Goods.
Yeah.
And usually they'll have a, $20, $23 pan for $13, $14. But if you went to a regular store and bought one for $20, $25, you could still get one. But it's worth having. Cooking paella, especially when you get to the fall and you want to be outside and eat a dish. And what I like about paella is it's got great flavor. And I mean, if you think about jambalaya, if you think about paella, if you think about a fried rice dish with either seafood or chicken, these are all basically the same thing. They just come from different regions. To me,
I mean,
paella
Spanish versus
it's kind of a fried rice
or
kind,
whatever.
Yeah. But the presentation, fried rice can look beautiful. Jambalaya, I guess, can, but paella in that pan, done right with the proper seafood, presented the right way with chicken, and when you're done and before you start serving, people see that, you go, that's a beautiful thing right there.
Oh, and saffron plays a lot into that.
Saffron goes into that dish as well, and it's not that hard. A lot of times I'll put chicken and seafood. I don't usually put sausage. I'm a chicken and seafood kind of guy. And you just cook the paella pan. You're going to put some oil and cook your chicken. Now, I also put squid. So I actually cook the squid first because it takes, on a lower heat, it takes a while to get that tender. Squid can be, people call it rubbery.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. If you cook it slower on a lower temperature and let it cook for a little while, it'll tender up.
Yep.
And then I'll pull that out, cook the chicken till it's just 3/4 done, pull it out. And then all you're doing is toasting your put in some shallots and things again, to throw in there. You can put in some red peppers. You can put in whatever kind of diced up vegetables that you want to have mixed in your rice. Toast those a little bit. I do the white wine again.
Yeah.
And then throw in your the rice, and toast that all up again. And then you're going to throw in your rice.
Yeah.
Your broth. And this is not where you cook it slowly. This is where you put it all in, all the liquid on a lower heat, and you're going to let that rice start to cook and absorb. And what I'll do is I'll have mussels, I'll have shrimp, I don't do sea scallops, but I'll do bay scallops, the lower ones, so it's in a bite. And those can all go in and start being mixed in. And then I'll put the shrimp in at the end and the mussels at the end, because the mussels will open up.
Yeah.
And the shrimp will cook, and I'll just turn them real quick, let them cook on the other side, and
right.
Done. And when you do it right, it's
a marvelous dish.
It's a marvelous dish. And it's really not that hard, not that time consuming. But when you have a party of 6, or maybe you have 8 people coming over, and you want one pan meal, so you don't have all this stuff going on in the kitchen, this is a great impress your friends kind of dish. But it's, as far as space in the kitchen, pans that you're using, it's just simplified. It's really easy.
And there is something to be said for like one pot dishes or like one pan
Absolutely.
or like minimal equipment use dishes, because they're great for parties. I mean,
large numbers of people.
To me, it's like, what do you want to do when you have a party? Do you want to sit there and cook the whole time and not socialize with your friends,
exactly.
or you want to socialize with your friends and have minimal cook time?
And that's a big reason. To your point, equipment and things and prepping, planning,
yes,
having that done so that you're right. You still make that great meal, but you still have that time to sit down or be in the kitchen and not be rushing and frantic trying to get things done. To impress your friends. They look at you and go, "This guy's smooth, man. He's under control. He's got this."
Oh,
and
yeah.
He can just have a sip of his wine or his whiskey, and he's chatting with me, and he's cooking, and the meal was fantastic.
Oh yeah. I love that. I love that. So. My last dish is actually coq au vin.
Oh, that's a good one.
So
it's not hard.
It's not difficult, but it's impressive as hell.
And flavorful.
And super flavorful, super luxurious dish.
So for people who don't know what this dish is, you need to tell them.
Okay, so first of all, we're talking about another braised dish.
You seem to like to cook that way.
I guess I like it because it's good for.
This is a French dish.
It's a French dish. So you take chicken thighs with a bone in.
Chicken thighs only, please.
Yes, don't do anything else. Essentially, get the pan screaming hot. You sear them, on either side or whatever.
A little bit of oil, sear them.
And then, you take that fond that comes from the searing. You take the chicken out.
Yep.
And then you put your bacon in, you put your veg in, or it's your mushrooms in this case.
Yep.
And you kind of cook it in that fond and get everything all like nice and lovely. And then you deglaze with your wine. You put your chicken back in. You put it in the oven to braise, and that's it.
Yeah, lid on, couple hours, done. Yeah. And when you present this, the presentation,
it's amazing,
and it looks beautiful with that chicken and the mushrooms and the sauce, and it's just a great dish.
I mean,
flavorful.
Oh my gosh, and there's a reason the French are known for their food.
Yeah,
this is one of those reasons.
Yeah.
They take an amazing. They take a piece of chicken, which is something pretty common, and they elevate the heck out of it and make it just look awesome. And they add all these texture components to it, and it's just...
Well, the thing I like about this dish is the ingredients. We talked about fillets and buying a tenderloin with the beef Wellington.
Yeah.
That can be a little pricey. This dish is chicken thighs.
Yeah.
Not expensive at all.
No.
And again, it sounds like it's the technique or something's hard to make this, because if you look up a picture of it, you're going to be like, I got to make that? It's not that hard.
Oh, no.
It's as simple as you just said.
And I cooked this for like a date night dinner one time. The first time I cooked it for a date night dinner. And I will give full credit to the recipe I followed. It's Chef John on allrecipes.com.
Yeah. Foodlicious.
He's awesome. And I
never see his face.
You never see his face, but he's got a very pleasant voice.
He does.
But my finishing move for this dinner was a Grand Marnier souffle.
Ooh.
As my dessert. So
look at you throwing a dessert in. That's another episode, my man.
Hey, we can get into that at another time, but that's another Chef John recipe, and it looks super impressive.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to cook at home for guests and cook a nice meal that everybody enjoys, especially if you and your guests are into wine.
Yeah.
Because wine and food just makes for a great night.
Yeah, agreed. So
thank you. Not wine and whiskey, wine and food. Thank you. I'm glad we agree.
Food makes for a great night as well. I'm going to do it. I'm freaking going to do it. I'm going to do a dinner night with you guys, and we're not going to have a drop of wine. We're going to have nothing
I
but
doubt
whiskey.
That's going to happen. You know my wife?
Okay, she'll probably have a drop of wine, but not me, and not you.
All right, well, those are 9 recipes for a great dinner night, or not recipes, but dishes. Look it up. There's tons of different recipes. Look up the different recipes on YouTube. Is one of my favorites because you can see how they make it. Yeah. You can see what steps and kind of what you're comfortable and going, I can do that.
The techniques.
Or not. The techniques,
that kind of thing.
So definitely look it up and check it out. But those are ones that we love to have and make. There's other ones as well that might require a little bit more time or effort or technique. But these are all, sound elegant and kind of high end, but really not hard to make at all. They're not hard to make at all.
And impress your friends for sure.
You'll definitely impress your friends coming over for that first dinner night. All right, let's get ready.
Here's the reveal for the whiskey.
And you think number 3 is Elijah Craig?
I do. Barrel proof.
I don't. Oh. I don't know why my wife is over here trying to jump in on our show.
Hey, she's happy because the Cowboys won. Don't worry, it won't last.
That's what she said.
know. Now I'm on Sandra's bad, naughty list here. What do you think? Now, 1 is definitely lower proof. There's no doubt in my mind.
I think 2's my favorite.
I think 3's my favorite, but 2's got a great nose.
2's got a lot of bite. I think 2. I'm not even going to guess. We need to close this show out. Let's just. 2's my favorite. 3's my next favorite. 1 is my least favorite.
Yep.
Same?
No, I go 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 is Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. I'm not sure
which one
pick that is. 2 is Larceny Barrel Proof. I told you I thought it was Heaven Hill.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a barrel proof weeded.
Yeah, okay.
And you kind of thought it could have been cast strength.
Maker's Mark
which
or
is
something
weeded.
like that, which is weeded.
And
okay.
I thought 3 could be a Four Roses, and it is.
Okay.
She doesn't show me. Let's see if she brings over which Four Roses she picked to see what recipe it was. So 3 is a Four Roses, and I thought it might be a Four Roses.
Yeah, I had a feeling one of these was, but
Just because there's so many over there to pick from.
Yeah, but 3 definitely has the highest proof for sure, right?
Well, yeah, and
Let's see. We've got so we got Russell's.
yeah. So she picked a Four Roses, which is 120.2. What's that Larceny Barrel Proof?
Okay, the Larceny's 122.2.
Yeah.
So it's a little higher.
I thought the 2 was a little hotter than,
Is this
and just
the
showed a little hotter.
Oh, that's
That's last year's 20.
Yeah, B520. Okay. And okay. So that makes me actually confirm the reason that I didn't particularly like I didn't pick that one as my favorite.
Yeah.
What's this?
This is nope. It's 160.1. Anyway,
but like on the Larceny Barrel Proof, what I'll say is on the B batch from last year, it had a little bit of a nutty astringency thing that I didn't particularly like. So that probably plays into it. But that has a great nose. I'll give it that.
No, maybe not.
Oh, man.
what?
It's a Four Roses single barrel of some kind is 3.
Yes, it does. They all have that.
Yeah.
They're all picks, babe. Is it JE? Yep, 32 4L. That's it. It's a OBSF. I thought it was a B for sure with that.
Oh, is that
High
that
rye.
Smyrna one?
This is the Parkway.
Oh. Yeah, that's the one I really, really, really like.
Yeah, it's a really good one. So I'm not surprised you picked it as your favorite.
Yeah, I really, really like that pick.
Yeah.
A lot.
And this kind of tasting blind wasn't fair to Russell's because you got some big high proof things
High
here
proof
that
stuff.
are
Yeah.
kind of, on the palate and everything, just kind of outshowing that Russell's. If you had that Russell's on its own, first pour, second pour of the night, just drinking it, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any Russell's pour is.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Generally speaking. All right, well, that's our show for tonight. Carter, had a great time, man. It was fun talking food. We need to do more episodes where we talk
absolutely.
a little bit more about food.
We need to talk about like our adventures in the kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. And until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.